It's happening, gang. Slowly but surely, the Biden regime is openly admitting that the Ukraine campaign, after tens of billions of taxpayer dollars and countless lost lives, has been an abject failure. We're going to see the latest on the ongoing unraveling of the propaganda nonsense we've been fed over the last near 2 years and what it all means for a new world political order going forward. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. If you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, many of you know that we have just been, unfortunately, completely demonetized. So let's all make sure to show some love to our sponsor, and that's the one and only Mike Lindell. Christmas is coming, and you got to click on that link below and take advantage of Mike Lindell's unbelievable holiday discounts. No one is offering better savings like Mike this holiday season. Click on that link below and treat yourself to over 60% off all of Mike's products. 60% off his incredible MyPillow 2.0s. 60% off Mike's wildly comfortable slippers. 60% off MyPillow mattress toppers. You seeing the wonderful pattern here? Order as many incredible MyPillow products as you want. I personally love Mike's Giza Dream Sheets, which are also 60% off as well. But this crazy offer is going fast, so don't wait. Click on that link below and support Mike Lindell as he fights for election integrity and surprise a patriot in your life with some of the most comfortable bedwear around this Christmas. Click on that link below or go to mypillow.com/Turley. Folks, click on that link below right now. There are a number of astonishing admissions coming from the Western media regarding the truth of what's really happening in Ukraine, like this one from The Telegraph. Putin's Russia is closing in on a devastating victory. Europe's foundations are trembling. It's a piece that details the abject failure of Ukraine's counteroffensive over the summer and how the Russian front is stronger than ever, and they're clearly ready to push forward as far as Putin wants. And that is exactly what the Biden regime is admitting. Here's the single most incompetent Secretary of State in our nation's history, Anthony Blinken, bumbling Blinken, admitting that Ukraine is indeed on the verge of collapse.
They're in a ferocious battle now in the south and the east. We are running out of funding for them. By the way, 90% of the assistance, the security assistance that we provided Ukraine, is actually invested right here in the United States, to our companies, to our manufacturers. Similarly, we've had extraordinary burden sharing with our allies and partners. We've provided very significant assistance, about $70 billion over the last 2 years. Our European friends and partners beyond Europe, more than $110 billion for Ukraine. So we have the burden sharing that we need. This is a time to really step up because if we don't, we know what happens. Putin will be able to move forward with impunity, and we know he won't stop in Ukraine. And he may well end up going after a NATO country. That would bring us in, given our obligations to our NATO allies. So here, an ounce of prevention is really worth 10 pounds of cure.
Now, there's so much there. I mean, first, you'll notice Blinken basically admitted that much of the money that's been spent on Ukraine is actually enriching the military-industrial complex here at home. I mean, that's ultimately what so much of this is about, feeding the multi-billion-dollar military-industrial complex. I'm sure many of you heard about the utterly insufferable, loathsome Alexander Vindman, who, of course, was the Democrats' #1 star witness in their sham impeachment trial against Trump, the first one. It's being widely reported that Vindman is being accused of trying to profit off the Ukraine war. Right? Surprise, surprise, I know. A swamp creature acting swampy. Who would have thought? Allegedly, of course, Vindman, who, as I understand it, was born in Ukraine, he's been allegedly pitching the government of Ukraine to obtain defense contracts through Trident International LLC, of which he is CEO. So he's being accused of dipping his hand in the multi-billion-dollar cookie jar for his own personal enrichment. Isn't fighting for democracy so much fun? But you'll notice the buried lead there in what bumbling Blinken said. If we don't keep sending money to Ukraine, Putin will, in his words, quote, move forward. And he won't stop in Ukraine. And he may well end up going after a NATO country. Now, that last part is absurd. It's patent nonsense. And it's predicated on the faulty notion that the only reason why Putin invaded Ukraine is because he's an evil dictator who had nothing else to do that day. That's what the neocon, neolib uniparty is trying to sell us on. This is what Nikki Haley and Anthony Blinken and Sean Insanity and Mark Levin and Nancy Pelosi are all united on. Putin invaded Ukraine because he's an evil dictator who wants to put the Soviet Union, the evil empire, back together again. And so he's going to start invading all of the old Warsaw Pact nations to boot. That is blatant, out and out nonsense. Think whatever you want of Putin. He's not invading Ukraine in order to reassemble the Soviet Union. Scholars such as John Mearsheimer of the University of Chicago, George Kennan of Harvard University, the author of Containment Theory during the Soviet period, a number of others, including the recently deceased Henry Kissinger, they all recognize for well over a decade that NATO's incessant and stubborn eastward expansion was indeed going to erupt into a full-blown conflict with Russia based on the dynamics of great power politics, in a manner comparable to the way the United States pushed back against the Soviet Union in their attempt to arm Cuba in our hegemonic region. So too this renewed hegemonic Russian Federation was going to push back against NATO's attempts at putting arms along their border. For nearly the last 2 years, I've been arguing on this channel, and a number of others as well, like Alex and Alexander over at the Duran, this conflict is ultimately one that absolutely could have been prevented had Western powers simply fulfilled what's called the Minsk Agreement, which Russia helped broker in order to bring about peace within Ukraine between the Donbass separatists and the Donetsk and Lugansk and the regime in Kiev. And just after Russia launched its SMO, its special military operation, Boris Johnson, along with the U.S. State Department, stopped the Russian peace deal that would have secured NATO neutrality on the part of Ukraine, which Zelensky reportedly was absolutely willing to agree to. So here we are, all these months and literally billions and billions of taxpayer funds later, countless lives lost. As the fog of propaganda begins to dispel and disappear, what are we seeing? We're seeing headlines like this from the Wall Street Journal. It's time to end the magical thinking about Russia's defeat. And the byline reads, Putin has withstood the West's best efforts to reverse his invasion of Ukraine, and his hold on power is firm. Actually, it's firmer than it's ever been. Russia's military is stronger than ever, and Putin is himself more popular than ever with an 80% approval rating, which is exactly what we said was going to happen in Russia. Or this headline, translated from the German paper Bild, Putin was brutally underestimated. Or this from NBC News, U.S. European officials broach topic of peace negotiations with Ukraine. It's a piece admitting that U.S. and European officials are working with Ukraine's government to talk about potential peace negotiations to finally end this war. In other words, there's no going back. They're not going to recover their lost territory, which has been permanently annexed to Russia. Glenn Greenwald called the piece a, quote, absolutely brutal article where NATO is all but admitting they lost the war to Russia and now must beg for peace, hoping Russia will be satisfied with 20% of Ukraine. There are now going to be many people pretending that they were against this monstrosity all along who weren't. Well, now, with the hostilities breaking out in the Middle East, with Israel and Hamas, I mean, it looks more like they're banking on voters getting distracted and looking elsewhere, right? Squirrel! Away from the debacle that is Ukraine. Look, when all is said and done, what happened here in Ukraine, the reason why we knew it would be a total lost cause for NATO is because the Ukrainian conflict revealed nothing less than the renewal of Russian political, economic, and military power. Russia, under the watchful eye of Putin, had risen from its humiliating defeat in the Cold War to reassert itself as a hegemon in the Eurasian sphere. And as John Mearsheimer never tires of reminding us, hegemons allow no other great power competitors inside their sphere. We certainly don't. But the problem is that after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, we were the only great power on the planet. The Soviet Union was dismembered, having lost a third of its territory overnight. China was still up and coming, still rising, nowhere near the power and strength it has today. Same with India, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. That world is gone. That unipolar world comprised of a single great power, a single great hegemon, the United States, is over. A new multipolar world with a number of world powers has risen, and Russia just asserted its claim on its own pole of political power over against the stubborn and ill-advised eastward expansion of NATO. The reason why we knew that Biden was going to fail is because his actions betrayed a man who thinks we're still living in 1991. A new world is rising, and unfortunately, it looks like it took the collapse of Ukraine for so many in D.C. to finally see it. But first, gang, as many of you know, we have unfortunately been completely and totally demonetized, which is putting our daily communication with one another at risk like never before. Now, we are actively working on getting this resolved, but as things stand, this channel has, without any warning, been totally and completely demonetized. And as Elon Musk said so powerfully last week, the whole point of these demonetization efforts is to deliberately try to make us patriots feel like we're all alone. They want to sever our relationship with each other and force on us a kind of digital solitary confinement so as to demoralize us and discourage us like never before. But to their horror, it's not working. Over this past week, you have carried this channel like never before. We've had more people than ever make the courageous decision to bypass big tech and join our Insiders Club. We have direct access to one another that can never be interrupted by big tech overlords. Over the last 7 days, we've seen literally thousands of you come to our rescue. And you've done it in two ways. You've signed up for our free newsletter and you've officially joined our Insiders Club. Those two acts alone are enough for us to collectively stand together and never, ever have our relationship severed. So I'm inviting the rest of you to do the same today, just by clicking on that link below and signing up for our newsletter and joining our Insiders Club. You are guaranteeing that there is nothing that big tech can do to get between us and make us feel like we're in a digital solitary confinement. It's as simple as clicking on the link below right now and opting into our free email newsletter. And once you do that, you can financially support us by joining our Insiders Club. Gang, from the bottom of my heart, I cannot thank you enough for your support during a time like this. You are my heroes, and it will be my mission to express my appreciation for every single one of you each and every week.